necessarily those of the station, its staff, management, or sponsors.
Are you a family caregiver? Are you caregiving for someone who can no longer take care of themselves? Are you overwhelmed? This is Caregiver Solutions Info with Marcia Teal. Marcia will be hosting an hour of true stories and information, tips and updates of the latest research and necessary information in the caregiving field, focusing on you, the family caregiver. An Alzheimer's disease and dementia care expert, Marcia has 15 years of hands-on experience at Arden Courts, a leader in assisted living dementia communities here in the U.S. Marcia covers everything you need to know as a family caregiver, especially if you care for a loved one with Alzheimer's disease or other related dementia or chronic illness. If you have a friend or relative that is also a family caregiver, call them now. They won't want to miss a minute. And let them know they can watch on CareGiverSolutions.info. And they can listen on WNN 1470 AM in South Florida or nationally on the iHeartRadio app. Now, sit back, relax, and learn from our host, Marcia Teal, as she brings information to you that may just be the caregiving solution you need.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Caregiver Solutions Info. Thank you for joining us today. We have another wonderful program for you. We are live out of Boca Raton, Florida, and whether you are joining us via the internet on the CareGiverSolutions.info website, or whether you're tuning in on the iHeartRadio app or locally on South Florida Radio, I'm glad that you're here. It's December, and we're in the midst of all the holidays and the preparations and the excitement, but that can be a really hard time for caregivers taking care of someone, especially people that have memory problems like Alzheimer's. It's a very stressful time. So caregivers sometimes feel like they can't do anything because it's too hard, it's too overwhelming. So I want to start off by giving you all a few helpful hints for the holidays. And just to let you know that you can still pretty much do everything you ever did if you keep it simple and you do a few modifications. So try to do everything you did, keep things on a schedule. Number one, by keeping things simple and not trying to do too much at once. Keeping it simple helps your loved one. Keeping the same routine helps them so that they kind of know what comes next during the day. Too much stimulation can be very difficult for a person suffering from cognitive issues. All the hubbub and the hassles and the music and the parties and the people and the gatherings, and a lot of times there's large group gatherings when families get together and lots of friends. It just can be too much for somebody. So perhaps you might want to keep your gatherings smaller, or you might even want to do your family gatherings earlier in the day, especially if your loved one is prone to sundowning. So later in the day, it's harder for someone who suns down. So keeping it earlier in the day, keeping it light is a good idea. Also, you can modify your parties. Alcohol is really difficult for people that have cognitive issues because usually they're taking a lot of medications. And as you know, medications and alcohol sometimes just don't mix very well. So you can modify the eggnog. Use rum extract instead of the real thing, and your loved one can still join in. There is such a thing as alcohol-free wine and, of course, alcohol-free beer, so that's another option. So your loved one can still join in and not feel like they're being left out of the party. Schedule some downtime, not just for yourself, but for your loved one. You both will benefit from it. Try to actually make that downtime when you need it the most and when your loved one needs it the most, so you both can benefit from it. So those are just a few holiday tips, trying to get you through, still having lots of fun and still doing all the things that you'd like to do, but just having to make a few modifications, and everyone will understand, and the holidays will be a lot happier for everybody. So today we have a very exciting show. I'm very happy to have with us today 3 team members from Baptist Health's Age Well Center for Senior Health. We're going to hear from them and what they do and how they help caregivers and others throughout the aging process. So it's very exciting. We're going to start first off with Rachel Weinstein. Now, Rachel is the coordinator of community engagement and education, and she is joining us from Baptist Health's AgeWell Center for Senior Health in Jacksonville, Florida, via telephone. So I want to welcome Rachel to the show. Hi, Rachel.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, it's so nice to see you. We have your picture up here on the screen. I'm in the studio, and you're calling from Jacksonville, and I can see you, and everyone else can see you. So we're going to be talking a lot today about health, and not just, health for people with, the cognitive impairment and what we can do to help them, but for the caregivers too, because obviously they have to be healthy to help themselves and the loved ones they take care of.
Absolutely, they do. So we'll be joined by a couple of my colleagues shortly, but I'm happy to talk about what we do that's special at AgeWell.
Great. So let's just start off and explain to everybody what is AgeWell and who is served by it.
Absolutely. So AgeWell is part of the Baptist Health System, which is a hospital system in the community of Jacksonville and Jacksonville Beach in Northeast Florida. We are an extension of the hospital. We are an outpatient, specialized, enriched primary care center specifically for older adults, those who are 65 years old and better, as we like to say. So under one roof, what's really special about us is, for one thing, our physicians are all primary care providers who are also geriatricians, meaning that they have additional training in specifically in caring for those who are older, 65 and better. So these doctors are specialized, and that's one of the things that sets us apart. The other very distinct thing that sets us apart is that, unlike your typical doctor's office, under one roof we have a lot of different types of experts who all know about and help patients with different types of issues related to aging. Some of our experts you'll hear from today. We have speech-language pathology, which does our cognitive testing. So memory, for example, is just one part of cognition. And, of course, dementia is a big part of what we see as we age too often. So we have an expert who provides testing and strategic interventions for caregivers. We have, of course, medical assistants and nurse practitioners. We have behavioral health, so we have geriatric psychologists and psychiatrists. We have social workers. We have a caring arts coordinator, one of whom is joining us today, who works with those who are dealing with all kinds of issues related to aging by using art and music and expression. And she has a special program that helps to support not only the patients but their caregivers. We have physical therapists who work on balance and mobility, and so and we even have a pharmacy team, which, while we don't dispense medication at AgeWell, we deal with a lot of medication management, helping people better understand how to take their medication, how to take it safely, including over-the-counter and supplements, which can have interactions. So it's not just your prescription medications that can be dangerous. So as you can see, we have a really robust team all under one roof to make it convenient for patients, for caregivers, and for our providers to communicate with each other.
Well, I think that's wonderful that you have so many disciplines under one roof to help everybody, specifically the older crowd. And I like what you said, not older but better, 65 and better. I like that. And they can come and get what they need. So my question is, how common is this type of service related to hospitals? Because I for one, don't know of a lot of hospitals that offer all of these types of services for the geriatric population.
Exactly. So it's not common at all. We are one of the few places in the country. University of Pittsburgh Medical Center has another, but these kinds of specialty centers for elder care are actually very rare. So we're really we're blessed to be able to do what we do, and we're hoping that as people get more word of us, they can start asking for that in their own communities and working with their hospital centers to expand what we're doing.
So when did you start the program there at Baptist Health?
So we started the program in 2011. We're going almost 2012. So basically 2011. We've been in action about 6 years now, and we have the active support of our CEO, Hugh Green, who saw the need in the community and recruited the former founder of the Age Well Like program in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and she came here, and her name was Shika Iyengar, and she started Age Well in 2011, and now our executive director is Earl Evans, and he has she passed the baton to him, and we have continued to grow and expand, and we just opened a second center at the beach in Jacksonville Beach. But many people come to us from other areas, especially because, as you know, Florida is a big snowbirding state. So a lot of people come just for the winter months, and they need medical care, and so we're here for them as well.
Well, obviously there's a big need for this, and you are growing. What's the basic mission or philosophy behind having this special center in the hospital?
Well, we're not actually inside a hospital. We are a separate building on the hospital campus, both the one at the beach and the one downtown Jacksonville. But the mission is pretty simple. We are here to serve both older adults who have complex medical needs, who may be more frail, and we're also here to serve those who are active and on the healthier side of the aging spectrum, but want to get ahead of issues related to aging. So, for example, if you have a parent like I do who who has dementia, and you want to ensure your own brain health, and you want to kind of get a baseline for how your own cognition and memory is, you can come to us for some testing and start to keep an eye on any kind of changes over time. If you want to prevent things like falls and keep yourself strong and make sure that you are paying attention to things that can keep you balanced and mobile, you can come to us for that. We have a separate program for any issues related to bladder health. So a lot of older adults are dealing with issues related to incontinence, and so we have a special program for that called In Confidence. And or it may be that a caregiver has a loved one who is much more complex and much more frail. Maybe they've had hospitalizations or emergency room visits. They may have had falls, and their own primary care provider may not be able to give them the kind of time and attention that they need because they're forced to see so many patients per day. Our primary care providers don't have that kind of pressure. We structure ourselves differently so that we can allow for no less than 30 minutes at every standard visit, 1 hour face-to-face with the doctor. That's just with the doctor.
Wow.
On the first visit. And the first visit, which includes our other experts, will be on average about 2.5 hours. So we really can spend the kind of time that other physician offices don't, because we understand that needs get complex. Patients and their loved ones have questions, and we want to make sure that we provide them with a relaxed kind of forum to surface all of those questions.
Yeah, that's great, because you're not only comprehensive, you have almost everything there that somebody would need, but what I really like about it is that you're proactive.
Right.
And that being proactive, especially when here we talk a lot about the family caregiver, the unpaid family caregiver, needing to be proactive, especially when things are showing up in signs and symptoms. And once you get that diagnosis, being proactive to know what to expect next. And I think that's the key to a lot of the issues that, all of us deal with, is being proactive and staying on top. And I think that you have that right there in your center for everyone to avail themselves of. And I just think that's a wonderful thing.
Thank you. So do we. We're very blessed to be able to do what we do.
Yes. So your part, you're actually the coordinator of community engagement and education. How do you engage the community there?
I do a lot of things to engage the community, including direct talks, presentations about aging and age-related issues, dispelling some myths and replacing them with some truths, and helping people get ahead of. I do a talk called Keys to Healthy Aging, and I'll incorporate into that talk what we do as a resource in the community, but it's much bigger than that. So it's really about getting in front of people and starting the conversation about what happens as we age, some of the challenges that we experience, and where to turn. That's part of it, and I'm also often visiting doctors' offices to let them know that we are here as a resource, and to turn to us when they may have some limitations with their own patient population. Perhaps they can't spend as much time as they want to and feel that the patient and their family deserves, and or they may need a special referral to us for things like our Enrich program, which you'll hear about shortly, or cognitive testing, or bladder health, or physical therapy, those kinds of things. So those are the various ways that I engage both the community and our physicians who reside in the community.
Lots to do, lots on your plate.
Absolutely.
So we're going to take a quick first commercial break, and when we come back, Rachel, maybe you can share a couple of those challenges that people face as they age and give us a few tips of what we can do about it.
Absolutely, and if possible, I'd love to loop in my colleagues.
Okay, we'll be back in just a moment. Stay tuned.
Arden Courts is not just a place to live, it's a place to call home. Residential living combined with quality caregiving. This is the philosophy behind Arden Courts. Communities created exclusively for individuals with Alzheimer's disease and related dementia who would benefit from a safe and structured environment. For additional information about any of the unique services Arden Courts provides, call 888-478-2410 to locate a community nearest you. Inquire about our educational seminars, resource library, or support groups, or simply feel free to ask questions you may have about Alzheimer's and related dementias. At Arden Courts, we know, we understand, and we can help because memory care is all we do. Remember, call 888-478-2410 for additional information about any of the unique services Arden Courts provides.
Hi,
Somewhere at the corner of bewildered and confused is a lost mother, a father, a sibling, a grandparent. Wandering is a common symptom of Alzheimer's or related dementias and can often make those who care for a loved one feel just as lost. If you're looking for a place that's safe and secure, look to Arden Courts. Memory care is all we do. We know, we understand, we can help. To learn more, visit arden-courts.com. Arden Courts follows equal housing opportunity guidelines.
Expert on CareGiverSolutions.info. If you have a question or wish to share a story, call into the show at 888-565-1470 and talk with Marcia. Now, back to Caregiver Solutions.
We are back with Baptist Health's Age Well Center for Senior Health, and we're talking to three experts today from the center. With me already is Rachel Weinstein, joining us from their Jacksonville office, and Rachel's the coordinator of community engagement and education. And thank you, Rachel, for being with us. We're talking about aging, and before we get to the actual topic of the memory, which we do have one of your team members going to be talking with us about that, let's join in with us Linda Gridley. Linda is the speech language pathologist at the Baptist Health Age Well Center for Senior Health. Hi, Linda.
Hi there. How are you?
Thank you for joining us today.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
So I was talking with Rachel, and we want to talk a few minutes about some of the problems people face as they age. And since you are also the person who does cognitive testing there at Age Well, you would perhaps be able to enlighten us on some of the things that are challenges as we age and maybe what we could do about them. Why don't you share a little bit about that?
Sure. I think that the biggest issue that I see initially when people come in is they're not sure where they stand. And their families also sometimes don't know where the patients stand. They're not sure if what the patient is experiencing is normal aging or if there is, in fact, some kind of abnormal cognitive decline. So cognitive decline can take a couple of roads. One, of course, is dementia, but then there is a precursor to dementia, which is mild cognitive impairment. So they are not the same thing. And even prior to mild cognitive impairment, a person might be experiencing normal aging changes. So I think the first thing is to establish what, in fact, is the person dealing with. What stage are they at in their cognitive abilities? And you can change your education, and the needs of the patient can be addressed most appropriately if you know what stage the patient is, in fact, at.
So when people come to the center, is it usually because they've noticed something going on with a loved one, or do people come on their own because they see things in themselves, or are they just afraid and maybe being proactive because maybe some form of dementia runs in their family?
Yes.
Yes, yes, yes.
All of the above. You pretty much just hit the nail on the head. I see all of that.
Okay. So when someone comes into the center and they're worried about their memory, kind of walk us through what a typical session would be, because a lot of people, I think, are maybe a little hesitant to take that first step because they're not certain what happened. Maybe it's scary for them. They don't know what to expect. How do you make it so that a person can feel at ease with, dealing with all these scary things that might be happening to them?
That's a great question. So I think initially the easiest way to describe the first session would be it's an evaluation. I always, when I'm able to, include the patient as well as a family member or a caregiver so that I can get the full picture, or at least as full of a picture as I can get. Sometimes family members aren't entirely comfortable speaking about the patient in front of the patient, and in that case, we would take a few minutes towards the end of the session. But generally speaking, I get a good idea of where the patient is living, what their concerns are, what the patient's family members' concerns are, what kind of memory changes. That's usually what brings them in, is memory. What memory changes are they noticing? And then we talk about how memory and cognition are, in fact, not the same thing. And there may, in fact, be other issues that are cognitive-based that the patient is concerned about. Today, for example, I had somebody who had great insight, and she said, I don't know if I'm having trouble with my eyes and I need to see an eye doctor, or if I'm having some brain changes and I just can't figure out what's in front of me. Sometimes I'm looking for something and it's right there and I don't see it. So that's an example where visual spatial abilities fall under the realm of cognition. She, in fact, had a history of dementia, and that is altogether what brought her in. So it's very different for every person based on their family history, based on their concerns, what kind of issues they've been having. Have they been forgetting to pay bills? Have there been concerns with scams? Are they having hygiene issues? Are there behavioral concerns? There are so many things that can impact the reason a person comes in. But on the first day of testing, we'll get that history, we'll figure out what's going on with them, and then I start doing the evaluation. If the patient is comfortable, I'll do the evaluation, which is asking some pretty formal standardized test type questions. I'll do that with the family member present unless the patient's family doesn't feel comfortable, or in fact the patient doesn't feel comfortable. I always defer to the patient. They get the final say.
Yeah, sometimes they feel like you might embarrass them or put them on the spot, right?
Sometimes that can happen. Sometimes the opposite. They're comforted by having a family member being present. It makes them more comfortable and they feel more at ease. So I just like to let the patient have the decision if a family member is present or not. I certainly try not to make them uncomfortable. We try to I'll laugh with them. I'll kind of make jokes and try to make them feel at ease. I let them understand that I'm not doing anything invasive. I'm just asking questions. I might have them do some writing and some drawing. Nothing too complicated. It's nothing physical. They're seated the majority of the time. So it's pretty laid back. And actually, usually at the end of a session, even if it was a challenging test for a patient, they usually say, wow, I feel like I got a good brain workout. That was more fun than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, that's great. That's good. It makes you think. Anything that we can do to exercise our brain is a good thing.
Absolutely.
So you mentioned a second ago about MCI, mild cognitive impairment, and how it's not the same, and it's not the same thing as having a dementia, which is not the same as having Alzheimer's, because Alzheimer's is a diagnosis and dementia isn't. But explain a little bit about the MCI part for our audience in case they really don't understand the direction that the brain is going in.
Well, at AgeWell, the testing that I use is based off of the scale that's called the Global Deterioration Scale. And that is a 7-point scale. It's very well researched in the literature. It's been out since the early 1980s, and it was created by a psychiatrist. So the testing that I do correlates to that scale. So we basically differentiate of the patients to determine right away what stage are they at. Stage 1 would be normal cognition. Stage 2 would be age-related memory changes, normal aging, we would say. Stage 3 would be mild cognitive impairment. So that would be changes in cognition that are clear-cut. The person may be having some deficits of word finding. They might have some route finding difficulties. They might have some difficulties with finding, I mentioned word finding already, but finding the right words. They might have difficulty with their memory and recall and orientation, but it's very mild. They're able to get by with having somebody maybe checking in or maybe giving them some oversight, using some strategies. But that would be the kind of person, typically what I describe to the patients and their families is that they might say something, they might ask a question, and then repeat the question maybe a few minutes down the road and not remember. So people around them might be noticing that they're having some difficulties at stage 3. Certainly they may be having some difficulties at work. It becomes more apparent. At stage 2 with normal aging, that's more the type of person who comes into the office and says, I can tell my memory is changing, or I just think a little bit differently, but no one else notices. No one else can tell. But I can tell the difference. That would be a stage 2.
That's a good indicator, right?
Absolutely. Stage 3, the families are starting to take notice. And usually it's a group effort that has brought the patient in at that point.
Mm-hmm. So if someone is at stage 3, what happens next? Do you suggest that they continue to come in for checkups to see if it's progressing and keep an eye on it?
Absolutely. So as part of my therapy, I do testing to figure out which stage they're at, and then the focus changes to, so what do you do about it? And I am a big proponent in establishing some good strategies and putting those into place right away. So the person can compensate for the difficulties. We can't make memories come back, but we can absolutely learn strategies to compensate for some deficits they may be having. And that's why testing is important too, because cognition is more than just memory, like I mentioned. There are other parts of cognition that are going to be very well preserved, and we want to take advantage of those. And then we'll use those preserved areas to help prop up the areas of weakness. So I also teach in my therapy what's called a brain healthy lifestyle. So I've created, based on research, I've pulled all kinds of literature. The doctors have helped me to develop this. I educate the patient and their families on things they can be doing on a day-to-day basis to keep their brain as healthy as possible. 50% of people who are at stage 3 will stay at stage 3. 50% will progress on to have dementia. So it's important to do the things that you can do to keep your brain as healthy as possible to try to stay in that stage 3 zone.
Right. That's one of AgeWell's, proactive programs is, doing something to keep from getting worse and a decline. So give us a few examples of some of the things that you suggest to people to be proactive, to stay healthy, to keep things going in the right direction.
Sure. Well, one of the biggest things that people need to continue having in their life is a sense of purpose. And that can take many forms, depending on a person's interest, of course. It could be family, it could be volunteer work, it may be something that's faith-based. But I like to tell my patients, you need to have a reason to get up and get out of bed every day. You can't stay in bed and stay in your pajamas all day long. You have to continue having a sense of purpose, and that's very strong in the literature. Another area would be diet. There are definitely some things that are good for the brain that are diet-based. For example, last year in the Journal of Neurology in December, there was a study published about the benefit of eating salad on a daily basis. Those patients that participated in the study had healthier-looking brains, in fact, 11 years healthier compared to the other group in the study who did not eat salad on a daily basis. And that's not something that most people think about as being brain healthy, but so far the research is supporting that.
It's all those good fruits and vegetables that they're always touting. Salads are full of fruits and vegetables and nuts and berries and all the good stuff that's supposed to be great for us. So makes sense. Right. It really does.
Exercise is another thing. It's important to keep moving your body. Physical exercise is good for the heart, and we know from the research whatever is good for the heart is going to be good for the brain. So it's important to be heart healthy so that you can be brain healthy. And socialization. People need to get out of their house. And I think that as some folks age, they become more likely to want to stay home. And that is definitely not good for our brains. So having friends, having activities, going to different community centers, those are all ways to get out and about, or just playing tourist in your neighborhood. Go to a facility or a place or a tourist attraction that maybe you haven't been to in quite some time. That would be a great way to stay brain healthy. And then, of course, there are cognitive exercises, and there are all kinds of activities to do that are good for the brain to make you think. Like I was giving you the example of testing, just the testing itself makes a lot of people think, and they think that's fun to use their brain in a way that they haven't used it in a while.
Yes, absolutely. So you've answered our question is what happens when we age and what can we do about it, and you've given us a lot of information. Obviously our eyesight, you mentioned the lady that wasn't sure if she was seeing right or if it was in her brain or in her eyes, and as we age things happen to us that can cause other issues. So I think the bottom line here and the takeaway message is to get it checked out. Go get the testing, find out what is the problem, if any, right? Because maybe there is no problem. How many times do you test people and say, you're perfectly fine, you're normal?
I'd say 20 to 25% of my patients are coming in because they either have a family history and they just want to get a baseline, which is very important, or they've been concerned that they're starting to notice some changes and they're very worried about it. Stress and anxiety itself is not good for the brain. It can cause some cognitive changes. So I think just finding out the answer, finding out that maybe they are just in that stage 2 or stage 3, normal aging or mild cognitive impairment, is hugely relieving for patients. And that itself is good for the brain.
Yes, absolutely.
So finding out is the first step.
Yes.
Seeing the doctor first, because they can decide is it something that they need to have tested, if we need to go the eye doctor route versus the speech pathology route. There's so many different issues that can cause changes cognitively, and a doctor really needs to get that good first look over to decide what's best for the patient.
Right. You want to go through the whole testing process to get the proper diagnosis to then be able to deal with it appropriately. And I think that's very, very good and wise advice. Mm-hmm. So thank you for sharing that with us, Linda. We're going to go to commercial break, and when we come back, we're going to hear from the third team member of Baptist Health's Age Well Center for Senior Health. So stay with us. We'll be right back.
Jot down this information. Right from the Heart assists families in finding the right living arrangements for their aging parents.
The inability to recognize the obvious often occurs with Alzheimer's, particularly among the family members who care for them. When the time comes for you to decide that someone you love needs more help than you can give, will you be able to recognize it? Don't wait for a crisis to make the decision for you. Talk to us. We know. We understand. We can help. Arden Courts. Being unable to recognize the obvious often occurs with Alzheimer's or related dementias, even among their caregivers. When the time comes for you to decide that someone you love needs more help than you can give, will you be able to recognize it? Don't wait for a crisis to make the decision for you. Talk to Arden Courts. Memory care is all we do. We know. We understand. We can help. To learn more, visit arden-courts.com. Arden Courts follows Equal Housing Opportunity Guidelines.
Courts provides. Call 888-478-2410 to locate a community nearest you. Inquire about our educational seminars, resource library, or support groups, or simply feel free to ask questions you may have about Alzheimer's and related dementias. At Arden Courts, we know, we understand, and we can help because memory care is all we do. Remember, call 888-478-2410 for additional information about any of the unique services Arden Courts provides. You are listening to your host, Marcia Teal, an Alzheimer's disease and dementia care expert on CareGiverSolutions.info. If you have a question or wish to share a story, call into the show at 888-565-1470 and talk with Marcia. Now, back to Caregiver Solutions.
Welcome back. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank our national sponsor, Arden Courts Memory Care Communities. Arden Courts has 10 communities right here in Florida and about 50 across the United States. Arden Courts is a leader in memory care, and they want to help you, the family caregiver. One of the things that Arden Courts does very well, among many, many things, is education and resources for caregivers. So if you are listening to this and you're a caregiver and you don't have this book, which is called the 36-Hour Day book, I'm highly recommending that you call to get your free copy. You can do so by just calling the toll-free number 888-478-2410. Again, 888-478-2410, and tell them that you heard about this free offer on the Caregiver Solutions info show, and they'll be happy to get your name and address and make sure to mail a copy of this book right to you. It is chock full of tips and helpful things for caregivers to know, things that maybe perhaps you do know, but ways to do it a little bit better. This is a very, very resourceful book for caregivers to put on your shelf, and you can grab it when you need to look up something. You don't have to actually read it cover to cover. It's a very easy read, and you can pick topics as you come across them. So don't delay. Give them a call. It's totally free, no obligation, and we just want to get this into your hands to make your caregiving a little bit easier. So today, my guests are from Baptist Health's Age Well Center for Senior Health. We're talking about aging and aging well, and that's what Age Well Center is all about. We've talked about cognitive testing and when to get tested and how that process goes. Linda Greedley, who is the speech-language pathologist, talked about that a few moments ago before our commercial break. And before that, Rachel Weinstein talked about education and about the mission and the philosophy behind the Age Well at Baptist Health. So we're going to switch gears a little bit now, and the next member of the team holding on is Linda Hawkins, and Linda is the coordinator of the Caring Arts and Enrich Cognitive Program. So I want to welcome Linda to the show. Hi, Linda.
Hi, and thank you so much for having us on here.
Oh, my pleasure. You know, I was in Jacksonville a few weeks ago, and I actually discovered you while I was there, and I thought, what a unique program that you all offer to the senior population, and specifically to family caregivers and their loved ones who are suffering with the challenges of dementia, which brings me to you. First of all, I have to say your title, Coordinator of the Caring Arts Enriched Cognitive Program. What is art in health? I guess that's caring art, but can you explain that for us, please?
Well, I sure can. Arts in health is a field that incorporates multidisciplinary use of the arts in the healthcare and community settings to benefit all the members in a community by enhancing their health and well-being.
So, again, it's all about being proactive and doing things to keep us healthy, and that doesn't include just our body, but it's our mind as well, correct?
Correct, yes. That's what arts and medicine actually addresses the whole person, because there's more to us than just our physical self and our taking medicine to get ourselves better.
So what is your Enrich program? That's very specific, and I know that it's highlighted there at the center. Tell me about that program that you oversee.
Okay, well, the Enrich Cognitive Program, it actually Enrich stands for Empower, Nurture, Reminisce, Inspire, Collaborate, and Hope. Now, this is a 6-week program that is broken up into 2 3-week sessions. We meet twice weekly for 3 hours each day, and it is a program that's designed for our existing age-well patients currently that are experiencing moderate to moderately severe cognitive impairment. And it's also for the care partner, which is what makes it a unique program. There are many programs in our area that address the patient themselves, but we found in developing the program that there was no one paying attention to the care partner. And so we developed this as a 2-part program where the care partners actually have a dedicated time for themselves, and we bring in guest speakers to speak to different concerns that the care partners might have. We bring in physicians, we bring in our hospital chaplain, our pharmacist to talk about medication management. We bring in our speech pathologist. Linda does a wonderful program on providing them with better communication strategies. Who else? We bring in a grief counselor, because you are going through a grief period at the loss of the person that you used to know. We bring in our psychiatrist and our psychologist, and we sometimes even bring in someone who has already gone through the journey of caring for someone with the diagnosis of dementia.
Yes, that's a great thing to do, because who better to learn from than someone who's already walked that path?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the program actually ends up developing a support group. In each session that I've been running the program now for 2 years, and in each session that we have had, the care partners have all exchanged their information, and they still keep in touch with each other. So it offers them, a safe environment to be with other people that understand what you're going through.
Yeah, support groups are great for helping the caregivers to feel not alone, number one.
Correct.
And also to get that great education. So since you've been doing all of this for a couple of years, what are some of the hot buttons that caregivers have, some of the things that you mostly hear that they are concerned about or that more troubling to them?
That the patient doesn't act like they used to. They don't understand that they don't remember what you told them to do 5 minutes ago. So
that's frustrating for them.
It's very frustrating. That's where the communication strategies come in, and also speaking with our psychiatrist, he often will tell them that they're not the same person, and they're not going to be the same person. And so you have to now learn how to communicate with the person that they've become.
And how does one do that? Any tips that you might have as what caregivers can do? learn the new way, because you've got a couple that maybe they're married 50, 60 years and one develops Alzheimer's, and now it's not the same person, although they might look the same and sound the same, but they're not acting the same. And that is so frustrating for caregivers because, they're dealing with their own issues as they age. So, what can caregivers do to help with some of these problems, like, they repeat themselves all the time, and she keeps asking me the same thing over and over again? I mean, so what are some of the little tips that maybe some of the members have shared with each other?
Oh, that's a good question. They just listen.
Yeah.
Mostly. I mean,
Be
that's
patient.
really all you can do, and whatever they say is their reality. So you kind of just have to go along with it, even though you know it's not real. Because the more you fight it, the more stressful it becomes for both of you.
Yes, absolutely. Well, that's great. I mean, that might be the easiest thing to tell them to do, but it's actually the hardest thing to do is,
It
get
really
that patience
I
in
can
there,
speak to
right?
that one a little bit, if you would like,
Yes.
Marcia, because I get this this question a lot from some of the caregivers when I've been in front of them in meeting. Often just having a separate release and a forum for the caregivers to voice their own stresses and concerns and frustrations and even anger, where they can speak freely and get support, will allow them to be more patient and forgiving of all of the changes and frustrations happening with their loved one.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's actually true, because I actually had it today in one of after our class today. One of the care partners came to me and said, "This has been so helpful for me because I don't feel angry anymore. I feel that because I've been able to speak with other people that understand what I'm going through, that I'm free." And
Right.
that was just the most affirming thing that I think I've heard thus far in teaching the class.
Absolutely,
this
because
particular woman was extremely angry about what has happened in their life.
Right, because why did this happen to me? But I guess what helps them is to know that, it's not normal in our world, but in the world of dementia, which is another whole world they're entering into, those kinds of things are normal in that world. And so learning the difference between what's normal in here and what's not, but what's normal in their world, and trying to understand their world a little bit better. So we have to get into their world rather than expect them to keep standing in our world. Does that kind of make sense?
That makes absolute sense, and that was a very good way to put that, because it is different, and you can't expect it to be the same.
Right.
So.
I use the analogy of dancing. I like to dance. A lot of people are dancers, and a lot of couples have danced together for many years. And you get to know your partner's moves, and you can actually anticipate sometimes what they're going to do before they do it. You know them so well. But if one partner gets dementia and starts forgetting the steps or doing things out of sequence or doing the wrong thing at the wrong time, you're going to end up stepping on each other's feet and possibly even falling down on the dance floor. So, that is going to be hard for them to learn new steps, or even sometimes to keep in mind some of the older steps, although the long-term memory stays with us longer. But
Right.
That is sort of like that. So you've got to help them and, either simplify your dance. Sometimes don't dance, although I don't recommend doing that because you want to keep things the same.
No, you got to keep doing those things.
You want to keep doing those things, so don't want to stop the dance, but modify and simplify, just like we talked about at the top of the show with some holiday tips of how to make things a little bit less stressful and not to step on each other's toes so much.
Correct.
So we're going to take our last break, and we'll be right back and hear last words from the team at Baptist Health's AgeWell Aging Center for Senior Health. So be right back.
Somewhere at the corner of bewildered and confused is a lost mother, a father, a sibling, a grandparent, Wandering is a common symptom of Alzheimer's or related dementias and can often make those who care for a loved one feel just as lost. If you're looking for a place that's safe and secure, look to Arden Courts. Memory care is all we do. We know, we understand, we can help. To learn more, visit arden-courts.com. Arden Courts follows equal housing opportunity guidelines. Being unable to recognize the obvious often occurs with Alzheimer's or related dementias, even among their caregivers. When the time comes for you to decide that someone you love needs more help than you can give, will you be able to recognize it? Don't wait for a crisis to make the decision for you. Talk to Arden Courts. Memory care is all we do. We know, we understand, we can help. To learn more, visit arden-courts.com. Arden Courts follows equal housing opportunity guidelines.
About Alzheimer's and related dementias. At Arden Courts, we know, we understand, and we can help because memory care is all we do. Remember, call 888-478-2410 for additional information about any of the unique services Arden Courts provides. You are listening to your host, Marcia Teal, an Alzheimer's disease and dementia care expert on CareGiverSolutions.info. If you have a question or wish to share a story, call into the show at 888-565-1470 and talk with Marcia. Now, back to Caregiver Solutions.
We're back, and my special guests are from AgeWell Center for Senior Health in Jacksonville, Florida. It's been so interesting. We've been talking about aging well and when things start changing in our health and in our brain, what to do about it, where to go, things that we can be proactive with. So I want to go back to Rachel Weinstein, Coordinator of Community Engagement and Education. We started with you, Rachel, at the top of the show, and I want to come back to you to find out some of your not only last minute thoughts about what caregivers can do, but if our audience hears something that piques their interest, maybe they can come to your center, because you did mention that people come from all over. Let them know how they can reach you, how they can make an appointment, what's the best way to contact you.
Absolutely. So one thing they can do is simply to call us at 904-202-4243. It's 904-202-4243. And we are open between 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. That's when our phones are open. They can always leave a message, but probably best to call us during our hours of operation. Conversely, if someone wants to reach out to me directly with a question after this segment, happy to entertain all questions and direct people to the right place. My direct number is 904-202-4622. It's 904-202-4622. They'll get me or my voicemail, and I will definitely call back. And anyone can ask me any question, and I can direct them wherever they need to be if I can't answer it.
Wonderful. Thank you for that. You all have so much information to share, and we could never cover it just in one show, but I'm so happy to have all three of you here with us today. So let's just, final thoughts, things that you want to share with family caregivers, a word of encouragement, a tip, anything that you'd like to share with us before we leave today.
I'm going to leave that to my colleagues. Both Lindas are on the phone. Linda Gridley, what would you say?
I would say definitely take care of yourself as a caregiver. You can't do a good job taking care of somebody else if you aren't taking care of yourself first.
Right. Good advice. Just like they say on the airplane, put your oxygen mask on first so that you can be there for your neighbor.
Absolutely.
And Linda Hawkins might have something to add too.
I got several things. There's a couple of great books. One is called Chocolate Rain. The other is Connecting in the Land of Dementia. Both of those books have wonderful activities that you can do at home so that you have moments of joy with your patient that has dementia. And the other thing that I would highly recommend is you can watch the Alive Inside video on YouTube, which talks about music and memory. Music is connected to us deeply in our life, and it will help both you and the patient to have a happier, more social life. You'll be more receptive to care and family visits, and it will reduce depression and anxiety, and can also help moderate pain. And it will also reduce, any resistance to do some of the things that you need to do. And it's something that both of you can enjoy together and have some really happy moments.
Absolutely. Great advice from all of you. I want to thank you again for being with us today. Appreciate your time and your expertise, and you all have happy holidays.
Thank you. Thank you. So happy to be here.
And I want to remind you all there watching to call in for your free book, The 36-Hour Day, 888-478-2410. Join us again next week, same place, same time, every Tuesday from 5 to 6 p.m. for Caregiver Solutions Info Show. In the meantime, don't forget, give somebody a hug because they need it, and so do you. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining us for this week's Caregiver Solutions with Marcia Teal. Join us next week as Marcia, who has 15 years of Alzheimer's disease and dementia care experience, brings you more needed information to help with the care of your loved one. This show can be seen again on CareGiverSolutions.info, and questions can be left on the site, which may be used on the program to help others. See you next week for more Caregiver Solutions.
The opinions expressed on the preceding sponsored program were strictly those of its hosts, guests, and callers, and not necessarily those of the station, its staff, management, or sponsors.